The race for space is on. Is it going to be winner take all or winner take most? Stick around. In this episode, we're going to dig into this. We're going to compare two companies, SpaceX, which everyone's talking about, and Rocket Lab, which some people are talking about. I'm going to get into why I think both of them have very promising futures, how it plays out, and we can kind of use examples of history from the past to see in other industries as they emerge what actually happened. I think that's some of the blueprint. So if you like content like this, absolutely stick around. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, like, hit the bell so you don't miss content going forward. So SpaceX has gotten a lot of, understandably, the oxygen in the room with its IPO a couple of weeks ago. Again, I'm wearing my SpaceX hat today, but we're going to talk about the industry in general. When I've read and looked at content on both SpaceX, Rocket Lab, the space economy, I think there's three types of information out there. There's information, there's misinformation, and then I think there's a large population of misguided information. When I say it's misguided, it looks at it only from one lens, only from one angle, that only this company, that only this outcome is going to happen. And I think there's a lot more wild card scenarios in that. So we have got, it's hard for us to estimate what the future looks like. We're just bad by nature of projecting 3, 5, 10 years out. And that's what we're talking about. When you talk about SpaceX, Rocket Lab, anything in the space economy, it's hard to project out that far. Think about a hurricane. If a hurricane was it was developing and it's forecast to hit, here's a week, 10 days out, the cone of uncertainty is like this. It's going to hit anywhere on the eastern seaboard, Virginia down to southern Florida. Now you get a little bit closer, the zone decreases rather, and maybe you've got it to a 100, 200 mile range. We are not at that point. If AI is in the early innings, the space economy is completely in pregame right now. We're in warm-ups. The teams are on the field. They're practicing. They're doing their shoot around. It's batting practice, whatever you want to call it, right? That's where we are with the space economy. So if you come into it with that lens, I think understanding it from an investor standpoint gives it a little bit more understandability. And that's what we're going to do. When I say I look at the history, I look at the past to help me with like the present and look at the future. I think we've got a few blueprints in it. So one of the misguided information that I see out there right now is, well, SpaceX is going to dominate everything in space. They're going to own all of space. And I've seen some stuff saying, well, SpaceX is the king right now, but here comes Rocket Lab. They're going to dethrone them. So when I hear that type of information, that should be one warning sign. Listen to it. Listen to what they have to say. But is it being presented in a way where they're actually just a fanboy? You know, they almost turn into a political aspect. One thing's right, one thing's wrong, and that will kill you all the time with your money. I can guarantee that. So when I think about it this way, it's like any successful industry that's blown up, there generally isn't just one company that leads the way. And that's actually the worst outcome. When there's only one company that's leading or dominating, you probably don't have an industry. You don't have proof of concept is what it is, what the holdback is there. You actually need at least two. Most things that work really well in industry, they turn to duopolies, but you need a handful of people. That tells you there's proof of concept. We can look back in history. Now, if you go back to another big economic expansion, you have to go back, let's go back to the 1880s, railroads, vintage old technology. Now, if you understand and read that history, it wasn't just one person where there was a race to get railroads from the East Coast to the West Coast. There were multiple people doing it and multiple barons coming at it from different angles. Some just wanted to go point to point. Some wanted to transport people. Some wanted to transport freight. And then, well, we can get into this. There'll be future episodes on this. The shovels, the picks and axes, all the side industries, the adjacent industries that pop up. Think about what happened with the steel industry, enabling it. My point is, there wasn't just one railroad company that got funded and made it. They needed the competition of many. So let's just go into it from that standpoint. So I'm very bullish on both SpaceX and Rocket Lab. I'll disclose I am a SpaceX share owner. I did buy IPO shares. Have not bought Rocket Lab. Do I regret it? Obviously, because I was aware of it a few years ago. When we look at the run-up it's taken in the last couple of years, yeah, but I've learned lessons from it, I think, over the couple of years, and it's helped me. The whole reason I started this channel, and hopefully this community where we can watch, learn, listen, and learn together, is to just better understand what's going on from an investing standpoint. So we're going to go into it. Today we're going to do what I call a low Earth, an LEO, low Earth orbit for, we're going to go at 80,000 feet looking at these companies. We'll do more episodes where it gets into specific, like product, this type of mission, this process on the individual companies. But let's just talk about, let's just bring it in a little bit, understand the industry, the opportunity, what we're talking about. Like I said, I do own SpaceX. I don't feel compelled necessarily to own both of them at this time. And again, I look to the past, tell me about the future. So for instance, outside of this industry, I've owned Coca-Cola stock for 25 years. I've never owned Pepsi. I have nothing against Pepsi. Coca-Cola is my preferred brand. I've stuck with it, but I didn't see the need for overlap there. So what I love about both of these companies is you have to think about this. It's not like Musk and the CEO Beck of Rocket Lab were the first people to think about going to space, but they actually are making it happen from their standpoint, like disposable, reusable rockets, getting out of the business of that disposability, eliminating waste, and getting that orders of magnitude we really need to make this industry take off. They've done it. If you think about it, American industry has been trying to do this since, I would argue, since the 1950s. And the way, what's really held us back is, in my opinion, short-term thinking. The ability for, I'm talking to you, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, we can go on and on. They had the need, they had the cash, the capital, but not the cash and capital to commit to think more than 90 days out, 1 year out, and meeting earnings. It really did take startups to make this happen. You needed the cash from private equity. You needed the ingenuity from an audience of brilliant people that were aspirational and had the inspiration to make things happen. And we'll get into this. They both need the ecosystem of like government funding, contracts, and things like that to provide a steady stream of revenue. So it's kind of like a perfect storm happening. And I think what's really beautiful about this and amazing, you think about, I mean, we can get dramatic about it, thousands of years of civilization, where we are right now with space and where we are right now with AI, they're both intersecting at the same time and really need both of each other, or space needs AI to take off. So I put a little quick guide just to walk through. If you're not familiar with these companies, I'm just going to share some. This is a fast moving space, no pun intended, but it's fast moving in the sense that a lot of these numbers are already outdated. So when we talk about SpaceX, we talk about Rocket Lab, I see those as the leading two pure play companies operating in space. We've got SpaceX on the left side, we got Rocket Lab on the right side. Let's talk about like what makes them similar, what makes them different, and get back to that theme. Why I think this is not going to be a winner takes all. This is going to be a winner takes most approach. So on the left-hand side, we've got SpaceX, primary vehicles, been operating Falcon 9 for quite some time, transitioning to Heavy, and then Starship. That's where everything happens. The future is pinned on that. That's where we start getting the heavy payloads to space, orders of magnitude gets reached. We start thinking about getting to the moon. We start thinking about orbital data centers, which is going to happen. That's the enablement standpoint. When we look on the right side with Rocket Lab, they too have been progressing through their primary vehicle, Electron to the Neutron, giving them more capability. But size is the difference with both of these things. LEO is low Earth orbit. That's the payload amount. The scale here is about almost 100. So SpaceX is operating at 100x weight ability payload, but also at least about a 10x launch price per launch. Extremely capital intensive businesses. So now you can start thinking, gee, well, SpaceX just raised, let's call it $100 billion in their IPO, and then they did a bond offering right after that. Very uncharacteristic for a company to put a bond offering out there. They retire their revolving debt. raised another $25 billion in a bond offering, and that too was well oversubscribed. I think they had interest for up to $80 billion of bonds. But SpaceX is going to need every single penny of that over the next 3 to 5 years because they still have to build out Starship. They're going to build out production and manufacturing at Starbase, Florida. There's talks about launch pad in Louisiana in Australia. Very, very heavy capital type businesses. Let's pop over to Rocket Lab right now. Up at the top, the revenues. I glanced over that. The IPO valuation for SpaceX, we know it was about $1.7 trillion. Right now, we're in the low $2 trillion standpoint. We're going through price discovery. I'll get into that in a minute. That's going to be all over the place. But Rocket Lab, holy cow. I left this in there intentionally. A $12 billion market cap late last year. We're in the high 50s or 60 billion right now. So a lot of people have said, well, SpaceX has overvalued, gone up so much. Well, if you go back to when SpaceX was private equity, it has gone up a lot since then. Rocket Lab has had the opportunity for price discovery. It's been publicly traded for years, but it's been a tremendous lift in market cap the last couple of years. Fast growing businesses. But I think where they're both similar is what we saw last week with Rocket Lab, especially. They announced, and this is extremely important. This is almost following what I call the SpaceX business plan or model at a much smaller scale, a much lighter scale. And I think this is the concept that's going to work. They announced an acquisition of Iridium Communications, and why that's important is it's going to give, you just don't want to be a rocket business, in my opinion. Manufacturing, building an expensive rocket, and then letting another person hitch a ride to space. You'll make money that way, but that's not going to be cost effective. Where you need is the whole end-to-end standpoint, very similar to what SpaceX is built out. So Iridium Communications instantly gets Rocket Lab the ability to do that, to be end-to-end, to have let's put it this way, it's their version of like a Starlink. It's given them that capability. I love it. The most important thing, I want to talk a little bit about this, is the funding that's behind it. So let's go back to, this is extremely important. You got private equity, but what both companies are using SpaceX has probably hundreds of billions of dollars of potential future Department of Defense and NASA contracts. There's a solid funding source in years to come as Starship the program gets going a little bit more. But Rocket Lab, don't forget about them. They have $2, maybe $3 billion of funding or contracts over the next couple of years, also from the government. It's extremely important to have that predictable level of booked business out there. The thing I like about the most, and I cannot underestimate this, is I'm going to jump off this and just explain this just a little bit more. Why I'm so optimistic on both of these companies is that founder-led brilliance. They actually make something happen, and over history that just plays out extremely well. It seems, is it a coincidence that both CEOs, not American-born, they both taught themselves essentially space rocket building and are headquartered in the U.S. now. I know they operate, and I know Rocket Lab operates in New Zealand. But if you read the history both on both these individuals, they had a fascination for this. And I always sit back and wonder, well, weren't already established companies thinking of this? And it gets back to my point. There was no immediate benefit. So an already public company is never going to invest capital. It's a hard sell to shareholders to invest capital, hundreds of billions of dollars, into a program that's probably not going to yield anything for a decade or more. But it's taken both of these individuals to do this. So where do I think this nets out? I'll just get to the chase here. One, I think, again, both companies are going to be extremely successful. They're in this race for space, and I think both of them are going to make one another better. I almost hope there's a third that comes into it. I hope Blue Origin can get their act together and get past blowing up rockets on the launch pad. I think it's going to make the whole group better. It's going to push them harder to build faster, heavier, cheaper, and get us where we need to go, because there is pent-up demand. We're going to go into a whole episode on this. We're going to terrestrial data centers. The demand is there. There's so much resistance with terrestrial that we do need orbital. I mean, who wants a data center in their backyard? More people would rather have a nuclear reactor in their backyard than a data center. Okay, so we have a resistance here on Earth, and there's going to be a tapped out energy supply. At a certain point in time, there's an S-curve there where if it gets as cheap or cheaper to operate a data center, and a data center, don't think of it as a 100,000 square foot building that you might think about here on Earth. It would be the size of, maybe a Boeing plane, an 18-wheeler up there. Now, it wouldn't be coherent. You still would need data centers on Earth, but you solve two problems there. You get the excess capacity that's needed, because in a couple of years, to satisfy the AI compute standpoint, we're going to need something else. It's just, we're not going to have enough build out from an energy supply here on Earth. So I am bright on both of these things, and I will say a disclaimer and a warning, and you don't hear this too much. If you invest in space, expect a bumpy ride. One, Rocket Lab has rocketed this year, right? It's a small cap or maybe more a mid cap company right now. There's going to be ups and downs with it. There's going to be exaggerated moves on how the market moves. SpaceX, anyone that tells you they know what the SpaceX stock is going to do right now is delusional. I think I know. I've been right so far for 3 weeks, but that doesn't make me right. I have a leaning feel that we're not going to see a break below the IPO price. I'll say that right now. I could look like a fool in a week, but it's starting to resemble. It might not. But we don't know. It still has to go through price discovery. The Qs, the NASDAQ just added. We got MSCI coming on. And who knows, maybe in a year, the S&P finally let SpaceX in the club. A bit late, in my opinion. But we don't know. It's worth watching. So what I'm getting at is you got to recognize this. You're not dealing with you're not dealing with a level of certainty in all of these. But if you are interested in this, and why I'm so interested in this is it's not, the fast money isn't here yet. Well, I know it sounds crazy. Both stocks are expensive. They moved a lot. When I say fast money, most people are thinking, I go back to something like Micron, SanDisk right now. They're thinking, what does this quarter look like the next 90 days? That doesn't exist with either of these companies. That will come, probably not to the early 2030s, the late 2020s at the earliest. So if you're a first mover, you've got a somewhat first mover advantage if you're thinking of this. Sure, they're both expensive based on a valuation standpoint where they are today, but the opportunity has not happened yet. There's a lot of variability to it. Who knows what actually is going to happen? But you're getting in front of the crowd, because you think about it, those same people that are trading SanDisk, Micron, day to day, quarter to quarter, that's coming in the future. That run up potential. So if the business is there for SpaceX, Rocket Lab, company XYZ to be named later, if they can address that point, you have got the same crowd, institutions and retail, that's going to be chasing these stocks. But you're just doing it in a more, you'll know the business ahead of time and what it means. It is risky. I think for most people, just being aware of it and recognize that maybe in your index funds, you might have exposure to it, that might be good enough for you. The next step is you might want to go a little bit deeper, and we'll talk about episodes like this. You might want to consider an ETF that's focused on space. There are a few good ones out there. Or you might just want to say, I'll do my homework. This occupies a certain segment of my portfolio. I'll go with it. That's what investing in innovation is all about. Not just telling you about all the terminology, but thinking about how it plays a place in your portfolio. Hey, in the future, we're going to do live streams where a community of us will get together, talk about stuff like this, talk about topics and learn from one another. But in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, hit the subscribe and like button, and we'll see you the next episode.